everybody, welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be filming the conclusion to my project pan in the year 2020. This was my first time ever doing like a makeup panning project, and I think I learned a lot. There are some things that I think I would have done better that I'll let you know about, but I have a lot of stuff to talk about, so we're just gonna jump into it. If you see me looking down, it's because I have a sheet of paper here with all of the things that I picked out for my project pan. So I'll just start with everything that I picked out. So first off, I wanted to use up, or at least get good use out of this perfume. This is a perfume from the brand Sugar Milk Co. I think I did good use out of this. I'm maybe like a third of the way through it. I don't wear perfume all the time, and this is something that's a little strong. I did at the beginning of the year have a second one of these in a different scent, but I actually ended up decluttering that and giving it to one of my nieces because it was just so strong and kind of like artificial smelling, and it was kind of like not my style at all, so I did end up decluttering that pretty early on. Let's see, two of the lip products that were on my list were the ColourPop Ultra Glossy Lip in the shade Saddle Up, which was a beautiful like creamy orange color, and the e.l.f. Tinted Lip Oil in the shade Mocha Kiss. And I did end up using both of these up. Saddle Up I used pretty early on. It was already done by my 6-month update. Lip glosses are really easy to finish up. That's something that I've learned along the way. If you use them consistently, they're pretty much gone. This is one that I didn't want to use because I loved the color so much that I didn't want to like use it all up because it's not an existing shade anymore, but it was getting older in my collection, so I did use it up pretty fast. Sorry. And then the other one was the e.l.f. Tinted Lip Oil. This one I actually forgot that I had in my project pan until like October, and then I just kept using it pretty consistently on the day-to-day and used it up within a couple of weeks. So those are both gone. I had to re-watch my first video, my project pan 2020 like intro video, which was the first video I had on my channel ever, and it was very cringy. I was very ugly. It was a whole thing, but in that video I talked about the ColourPop Amber Crystal Lip Balm. That is something that I don't have anymore. I didn't even keep the packaging. I didn't even really think far enough ahead to think about doing this sort of video, so I don't have that anymore, but I did use it up and it went pretty fast. I think I talked about it in my 6-month update, but I had a setting spray from that same collection. That one I did also end up using up completely, but I don't think I have the packaging for that either. So those are both gone. The setting spray was just like an additional product that I used up. Setting sprays are also something really, really easy to use. So that one was gone pretty fast. Next on the list are two Avon lipsticks. My mom really likes to shop from Avon. She always like gives me lipsticks from them. They're not cruelty free, so I don't try to take them from her. But I did have these that I got from her like a while ago. These are in the shade Matte Fuchsia, which is like a bright kind of like Barbie cool tone pink. And the other one is a red that I'm actually wearing today. It's like an ombre lip with a nude. These I didn't get a lot of use out of, but I think the issue is with everything that was going on this year, the pandemic, wearing masks all the time, I just didn't really reach for these because I'm not going to choose to wear like a bright bullet lipstick underneath a mask. There's just not a lot of function in that, so as a result, these really didn't get a lot of use, and I have a couple other products that I'll talk about next that had a similar issue with wearing masks all the time. They weren't things that I was really reaching for, so unfortunately these really didn't get a lot of use. So I probably will still keep these in my collection, but I do anticipate that they will have a similar kind of fate that they did in 2020, which is I'll probably use them occasionally and while I'm sitting around the house and things like that, but they're not going to get a lot of active use, and it will take a while to use these up. Similarly, these two things also didn't get as much use as I was hoping to get out of them. Obviously, again, with masks, I wasn't wearing a full face of foundation or anything under it. That's not functional, that's not fun for anyone. So the foundation, I think I may have used like maybe a total of like 15 times, like on the weekends and things, where I was like, filming for YouTube or filming for Instagram or something like that, I would choose to reach for this foundation, but I definitely wasn't getting as much use as I could have. The Shape Tape, I think I have gone through quite a lot of this. It's very light now, and even though I wasn't using it that much on my face, I still do use it as like an eye primer for like shadows and things. So I still did get use out of this. I think it's on its last legs. It's not pulling up as much product. I haven't taken the stopper out yet, but I think that is gonna come up in the next couple uses. So unfortunately, again, I wish I could have used these up. I think if things had been normal, I may have, but you know, with the state of the world, foundation is basically the last thing I'm reaching for. Something for my base that I did end up using up is the e.l.f. Beauty Shield, which is kind of like a primer sunscreen kind of combo. This one, obviously masks are good and they are going to protect some of your face, but the sun is still there. So I was wearing sunscreen every single day that I went out or went to work or anything like that. So I did get a lot of use out of this. I finished it up maybe, I don't think I finished it up by my 6th month, but maybe in like August or something. And I do actually have a backup of this because basically when I got this, it was like leaking. So I contacted e.l.f. and I was like, hey, is this supposed to happen? They're like, no. So they sent me another one. But the same thing ended up happening. So I think it's just the packaging of this. When it was in shipment, it was leaking. I never had the leaking issue afterwards. So I do have a second one of these. I have already pulled it out. It's about 1/3 of the way through. It will be in my Project Pan 2021. Okay, so these, similar to my foundation, cream products and specifically cream blushes, which obviously go on your cheek or at least in this sort of area. That's all covered by masks. I didn't really get a lot of use out of these unless I was reaching for them to like film a video or something like that. I think I will roll these into my Project Pan 2021 just because I do want to continue to get use out of them, especially because they are cream products. They don't last as long as powders and things. So these do kind of have an expiration date coming up. So I will continue to, you know, reach for these. I did get some use out of them. You can see the like tops are more flat. They were really round at the top. But I mean, it is what it is. So hopefully more use out of these next year, but unfortunately that's not a guarantee. So I'm going to talk about my bronzer next, and then we'll get into more of the empties. So this was what I was using as a bronzer. This is the e.l.f. Prime and Stay Finishing Powder in the shade Dark/Deep, which is obviously a very deep setting powder. I like this because it's sheer and kind of buildable, but it doesn't go on like nothing. I find that a couple of bronzers in my collection are really, really sheer and like to the point where you're building and building and building and there's still not a lot. I tend to prefer like a darker bronzer, so I do really like this. I guess I can get rid of that. Yeah, so I do really like this. I think I did get a lot of use out of it. As you can see, there's a lot of pan in there. When I first started, when I pulled this into my Project Pan, it did have pan in it already, but I have expanded on that. I think I will use this in 2021, maybe not immediately. I think I will rotate something else in to start, but I do want to use this up. It's like, it's so close, but it's such a fine powder that has a good amount of pigmentation that you don't need that much when you're applying it. So it does make it hard to use up, but this is one of my favorite bronzers. It just looks really, really nice on the skin. So the next couple things, I guess I'll just go through all the things that I used up that weren't part of my Project Pan. Fortunately, like, I did go through quite a lot of things. I'll start with the boring stuff, which was 2 like big giant body butters. One was from Trader Joe's, one was from the Body Shop. I wear lotion every single time I get out of the shower, so it's really easy to go through these for me, but I just wanted to include those. I also used up another e.l.f. setting spray. I actually finished using this up this morning. It was just kind of like spitting on me, but there's nothing else in here. I think I used up a big one of these at my 6-month recheck. Yeah, I mean, these are really, really easy to use up setting sprays, especially the way I use them. I tend to do like my foundation or concealer or BB cream or whatever I'm using as a base product. I'll set that, then I'll go in with my cream blush or highlight or whatever. Especially if I'm using powders, I'll set after each layer just to get rid of that like powdery cast. These I go through like water, but this is another one I was working on. I also ended up using the ColourPop Ultra Glossy Lip in the shade Flying Pony. This was something that was starting to get older in my collection, so I didn't want to use it up quickly. This is kind of boring. I used up 2 of the Essence Get Big Lashes Volume Curl Mascara. This is one of my favorite mascaras. The Lash Princess is good, and I know a lot of people swear by it, but this is the one that I would recommend. Let's talk about a couple of minis. I used up this mini Too Faced Hangover RX setting spray thing. It just came with like one of my orders. I used up this mini Urban Decay Hi-Fi Shine lip gloss in the shade Naked. And then I used up this little teeny tiny facial oil. It's called the Green Goddess facial oil. I don't actually know where this is from. My mom just gave it to me, but it was really nice. It smelled very fresh and cooling and stuff. So that was there. And a couple other things. This was in my project pan. This is the Essence Make Me Brow. It's like a little fiber brow gel. It's kind of like a dupe for the Benefit Give Me Brow. I do tend to use this on the front of my brows just to keep them in place and keep them kind of orderly. It did take me a while to use this up because I have not a lot of eyebrow, but if you're looking for a really nice brow gel with the like fibers in it, these are really nice. These ones I am calling done. They still have a couple of uses in them, which I will use, but for right now, for their purposes, they're basically done. This one is the Wet n Wild Gel Lip Liner in the shade Bear to Comment, which is, this is something I'll probably repurchase because it's a really, really good nude for my lips. This is how much I have left. So it's basically done. I'll use the little bit of product left in here, but these are really nice. They're really creamy and soft, but after like a couple minutes they will set down more so they're not smudging all over the place. And lastly, out of my like empties, this is the, it's not, you can't even see it anymore. This has been going so strong for so long that all of the writing on this packaging is gone. But this is the Milani Brow Tint Pen. I use this to do my fake freckles. I just kind of like tap some on, and then I'll take my finger and kind of like soften them a little bit. And then quickly I'll just talk about this. This is something that was not in my project pan, but I ended up hitting pan on anyway. So I guess it counts. This is the Wet n Wild Mega Glow Contouring Palette Contour. It's one of these. I've had this for a while. This is one of my first like contouring products that I ever bought. Although I don't really buy a lot. Contouring is something that I'll do on occasion, but I don't really do it every day. This side, the contour side, had pan in it beforehand, but I was starting to use this like softer like banana powder in here to like reverse contour because sometimes I get a little messy with my bronzer. So I was using this, and I really, really like the formula of this. It's very like loose. It's like basically a pressed powder, but it's not pressed that hard, so you get a lot of product when you dip your brush into there, which is really nice, especially when I'm using like a sponge to do my reverse contour. You can kind of like stamp it in there and then drag it along like your under cheekbone or whatever. So that's what I was using this for, and then I accidentally hit pan, so I was like, great, cool. So that's that. It's really nice. Lastly, for like all my non-eyeshadow products that were in my project pan, this is the L'Occitane hand cream. I have not finished this up. This was something that probably should have been finished up months and months and months ago, but I was just keeping it in a drawer, which I think was my big issue. I should have kept it out on my like desk, which now I'm doing. I put it on my desk that's right next to my bed, and so I use it every night before I go to sleep. So in the month that I've done that, I've used up half of it, but because I had it like hidden in a drawer for like the 10 months prior to that, I really didn't get that much use out of it. This probably will be done by like the end of January, but it's my fault. I kept it hidden from myself, so I didn't get as much use out of it, but it will be used up eventually. Okay, last but not least are the eyeshadow palettes. I think going into this project, I wasn't necessarily looking to pan a whole bunch of eyeshadows. It was mostly that I wanted them to be in my project pan so that I would reach for them more often, because these two I wasn't necessarily like reaching for that often. So I essentially did do what I was looking to do, which was get more use out of these. Unfortunately, I wish I had like tangible progress to show you in the form of like pans and several of these in these eyeshadows. Unfortunately, I don't. I can see definitely like dips and like chunks out of a couple of these shades. But the fact of the matter is, I think I did hold myself back with picking these eyeshadow palettes. Now, I do think it was a good learning experience, because essentially what I've learned is that in picking palettes for project pans, tongue twister, I think I need to A, just pick one, and B, I need to pick smaller palettes. These are just really big. This one, hold on, 3, 6, 9, 18. Yeah, this one has 21 shades. This is the Urban Decay Born to Run. Looks like this. 21 shades in that one. And then this is the ColourPop So Jaded, the collaboration with Kathleen Lights. And this one has 30 shades in it. So overall, even in just my project pan, I was working with 51 eyeshadows, which is too many, entirely too many, especially because on top of using these, I like to rotate my eyeshadow palettes weekly. So every Sunday night, I'll kind of sit down, I'll pull a palette or two and be like, I would like to get some use out of these this week. And so I'm not reaching for these every single day. I will reach into these to be like, oh, I'd like to use that shade with this look that has been done with a completely different palette. So I just find that what I need to do going into 2021 is just pick one palette and pick a smaller palette. And ideally it would be a palette that has colors that I can, or like shades that are really unique that I'd be drawn into, or shades that can be used basically universally. So unfortunately, I didn't hit pan on any of the shades in here, but I do see definitely progress in a lot of these, like the shade, let's see, my ColourPop one is rearranged, so I don't remember all of the shade names. I'm pretty sure this one is the shade Moonstone. This one is really, really pretty. It's got like kind of like a purpley tinge to it, and it's a shade that I was wearing as like a one look shadow on multiple days. A lot of times these palettes came in handy because if I didn't have time to like sit down and do a look in the morning, I would just pick a shimmery shade, throw it all over my eyelids and be out the door. So it was good for that because I would always reach for these palettes to do something like that. I wasn't really working or like looking to pull out a separate palette to do something like that. I'd just be like, let me get some use out of these ones. But the fact of the matter is I just really like to rotate my palettes. That's how I get A, use out of them, and B, I don't get bored with my eyeshadow and be like, maybe I should buy something new, so these were good palettes. I really do like them. I'm happy that I got more use out of them, but going into my next project pan, I will basically be picking out eyeshadow palettes in a completely different way. I am looking to make tangible progress in my palette for next year. But I did find that I like these palettes a lot more now that I've used them consistently throughout the year. This palette, the Born to Run, was something that I was actually really close to decluttering because I just hadn't used it, and then I was like, maybe let me put it in my project pan, and if I feel like I'm still not getting use out of it, I will declutter it. But I do feel like I got a lot of use out of it. It is Still something that I may declutter, but I'm happy that I got the use out of it that I did. If I declutter it, it'll go to like one of my nieces or something, someone that maybe enjoys more neutrals and more subtle makeup. These are pretty dark, but I feel like a lot of these shades sheer out a lot, which is one of the gripes that I had with this palette, is that everything in here looks like it's going to be pretty impactful, but isn't. One of my favorite shades in here is the shade Smog, which is this like, it's pretty boring actually looking at it in the pan. But it's just like this like kind of golden brown shade, but it has all these pretty like micro glitters throughout it, which is my issue with this palette, is that that's the only shade in here that was like fun and had like interesting texture and dimension. These shimmers could have been so much more, but they just weren't. So this may be something that I declutter or give to a friend or something. But I am happy that I got the use out of it. I do feel like I got some of the money's worth out of it that I, paid. So sorry, I'm like sniffling now. I don't know why. But yeah, I do think that I got good use out of it. I am happy with it overall, but it's still not something that after the project pan, I don't see myself reaching for this super often. But I am still happy that I have it. I'm still happy that it was in my project, and I'm happy that I got use out of it. It just may not be something that stays long term. And then my So Jaded. I love this one to begin with. Like when I saw all the reveal videos and stuff about it, I was like, I need to have it. And I was happy when I got it. I was using it a bunch. And then it was just kind of a thing where I slowed down on using it. Then it did get a second life when I saw someone on Instagram, I think it was Liz Dagger Beauty. She rearranged her palette and I was like, damn, I'm gonna do that too. And then I did. It had a whole nother life. I was like, I love the layout so much more. It's more inspiring. It's interesting. So that I did get more use out of it after that, but then again it started slowing down. I wasn't reaching for it that often, and so I decided to put it in my project pan. And I do think that was a good idea because there's a lot of shades in here, and I feel like when I was first reaching for it a lot, I was kind of using the same shades over and over, which is fine, I was using the ones that I liked. But by putting it in my project pan, I did find that I was reaching for shades that I hadn't before, and there are a lot of really surprising shades in here. Sorry, my camera shut off on me. I was talking about this shade up here. I don't know which one it is, but it's kind of one of the lighter shimmers. It looks it's basically like a champagne, but it's got kind of like this purpley shift, and it's got like these teeny tiny blue glitters in it. It looks very unassuming in the pan, but once you like swatch it out and look at it, I don't know if you'll be able to see it. But once you use it on the eye, you're like, this is way different than what I thought it was gonna be. And there are a lot of shades like that in here. One of the other ones, again, I don't know which shade this is because mine is rearranged, but it's this one. Again, looks very unassuming in the pan, but once you take it out, I was using this the other day and I was like, I'm just gonna do a quick neutral look for work. It's not gonna be anything crazy. I put my brush into it, I put it on the eye, and I was like, did I dip into the right shade? Because in the pan, I don't know if I'll be able to show you the comparison here, but in the pan, it looks like it's gonna be like this boring, like mid-tone beige, but actually, it's the swatch right here. It comes off way more cool toned and like purpley pink. It's very, very strange, but in a good way. Like it doesn't look anything like it looks like in the pan. So there are several shades in here that kind of do that, and it's strange, but in a good way. It makes this palette way more interesting. Even at like first glance, you're like, oh, that's a champagne or that's a weird beige, but they're not. I do love this palette. It will stay in my collection. It is something that I probably will reach for, especially the shade in here. Hold on. Can you open? The shade Diamond, which is like the Super Shock in this palette. I'm wearing it on my eyes today, but this shade is really, really pretty. It's like this very glossy, wet looking shimmer. It's got like little blue and like purple glitters in it. Really, really gorgeous. So that's kind of everything. Like I said, I will talk about my project 2021 in a separate video. I'm also going to be talking about my overall makeup spending goals, which is basically to spend like basically no money on makeup. So that's it. That was my Project Pan 2020. I had a lot of fun. I learned a lot of things, and I used up several products. Let me actually count. I think I used up around 16 products, which is pretty good, especially for my first go round. So hopefully in 2021 I will get more products used up, especially with me buying less. So if this was at all interesting to you, hit me with a thumbs up, hit me with a subscribe if you'd like to see more of what's going on. I don't do makeup videos as often just because I don't find that they do very well, but obviously if you're watching this, thank you so much. Definitely stick around if you are interested in seeing what I am trying to use up in 2021. Let me know if you did a panning project or a project at all in 2020, or if you're looking to do one in 2021, and I will see everybody in my next video.